So hello subscriber, I will start with new series. The series name is What If Naruto Teleported in Harem World in Ma. This is second part of the series, so let's start the series. Naruto does now not observe the school map included inside the folder the school had sent him, notwithstanding Katsuki telling him often that he have to, and he partially regrets it as he steps through the school gates. It had taken him some time to memorize the layout of his secondary college, and UE is plenty larger. He effortlessly recognizes the new Year 1 college students from their atmosphere on my own. A few he even remembers being within the same institution at some point of the entrance examination. And he follows two boys who seem to understand in which they're going because surely the first-year classrooms are placed within the identical vicinity. The two in the front of him are Blonde and Raven, and Naruto feels nostalgia nicely up inside him as he follows from a fixed distance. He's too a long way to hear what they are announcing without the usage of chakra. But he's happy honestly watching, not like him and Sasuke. However, they appear to get along thoroughly. Naruto is right, and he quickly spies the room labeled 1B inside the a long way distance. The two boys he were following break up at the entrance. The blonde boy cheerily waves goodbye to his raven-haired accomplice who enters the room labeled 1A earlier than he jogs off the room next down the hall. And Naruto assumes he and the blonde are classmates. He steps via the schoolroom door and realizes that he is one of the earliest to reach, just behind the blonde boy, and two different classmates. There may be nonetheless time before class is formally set to begin and everybody appears to be sitting any place. Naruto slips beyond the blonde boy, who is looking around the schoolroom, and takes a seat on the desk positioned at the very back. With the aid of the window, the two who were within the study room while Naruto and the opposite blonde had arrived appear to know every different, and are locked up in their own circle. Naruto unearths he isn't always bothered, confident in his skills to make buddies after each person has arrived and settled, and is digging round his bag for something to devour whilst the blonde from earlier loudly places his bag onto the table in front of him. Hello. Am I able to take a seat here? Naruto blinks, then grins, of direction. It's not like the tables are mine to bail. The blonde settles in his chair before turning round. I am Togata Mirio, he says, from Chiba. Naruto at once decides he likes the boy. I am Bakugan Naruto, he replies. I'm from Shizuoka. Oh, the Bakugan Naruto? Document setter of the doorway checks. Naruto holds back his giggle. I bet so. Mirio laughs. It truly is cool. Additionally, equal prefecture? Lucky you, yeah, a minimum of I get to turf from domestic. Slowly but actually, the rest and their classmates begin to trickle in. Naruto and Mirio, extra comparable in character than he had to begin with. Idea. Pause of their mild communicate to greet those who sit down round them. The woman to Naruto's left offers him a cheery wave, and the boy beside Mirio sits on pinnacle of his table and right away joins their verbal exchange. Some time later, as soon as it appears as though anybody is here and has taken their seats, a lanky man enters the classroom. Naruto at once notices that he is not a pupil, in all likelihood an instructor, because even before the fact that he is not within the general UA uniform, he's distinctive. His chakra might be as low as the common civilians, however there may be something in his atmosphere, inside the manner he holds himself, that tells him he's stages in advance of absolutely everyone else in the room, aside from him, probable. But Naruto has by no means been one to brag. The man claps some instances, and when he has everyone's attention he smiles warmly. Right away, Naruto is reminded of Irika. Desirable morning, everyone. I am Kawano Anagi, and I'm the homeroom trainer of Sophistication 1B. He begins with a run via of the route, listing out distinctive instructions they'll be taking at some stage in their first year. Once completed, he claps his palms together. Now, get modified, elegance, and meet me outside at the fields. We will be engaging in an easy quirk apprehension check. It will be much like the one you've absolute confidence finished in center faculty. So do not be afraid and give it your all. Naruto follows Mirio, who appears to have carried out what he had not and memorized the school map. They alternate in the changing rooms, then make their manner toward the fields. I need to invite what your quirk is, Mirio says, but I think I'll get to look it soon sufficient. Naruto grins. Same for you, he replies. This is so exciting. Tibeo. Anagi is watching for them in the fields, and he offers a rundown of all the physical sports they will proceed to partake in. Perhaps we can begin with an indication and spot how matters move. Bakugan Naruto? Naruto blinks, then slowly raises his hand. Yeah? His teacher smiles at him and waves him forward. I hear you set the new record at the entrance exam, he says. Why don't you display for us? All eyes are on him now. Naruto shakes off the attention and grins, certain. Tebeo. He accepts the ball held out to him and stands within the circle marked out on the ground. I just throw it? Onagi nods. Deliver it the entirety you have. The entirety. He can experience Kurama stirring within him. Supply him the whole lot. Child Naruto rolls his shoulder. Feels chakra rush through his body in a flare of orange fireplace and burning foxtails. And he hurls the ball as some distance as he can. It vanishes from sight, though he isn't certain if it's far because of the distance, or as it had disintegrated, and turns again to his class to see all of them staring with their mouths placing open. Onagi glances on the screen device in his hand and jots something down onto a clipboard before nodding in approval. Neat. Now, class, permits get to it. Whilst Mirio had first heard of Naruto, it had been while his satisfactory buddy Amajiki Tamaki had stated the birth of a brand new school front examination report at the same time as they had been confirming their own faculty offers. Collectively, Bakugan Naruto, who had gotten a mean written test rating however had without difficulty doubled the second one-location scholar, and their score for the duration of the practical examination. Tamaki were interested, on account that both of them extra or less had problems with their very own quirks, as well as understandably apprehensive that someone with such talent, who honestly understood their own electricity and knew how to use it too, might be in the same 12 months as them. Mirio were involved, too, but extra than something he were wary, in the end. He had seen people act like his superiors for less, so he were unafraid to admit that he had considered the possibility of going up against a few massive jerk who had extra brawn than mind that took his quirk and his abilities with no consideration. But Naruto is truly now not like that in any respect. Bakugan Naruto, who is glad and brilliant and authentic, who is unafraid to confess he does no longer recognize things and is usually greater than satisfied to assist out with whatever, is without difficulty everything Mirio loves to see in a hero. By the lunch damage of the primary day he has already talked to a majority of the scholars in the class, and this is in particular due to the fact people appear to be interested in him obviously. Once Onagi dismisses the elegance for lunch, Mirio is first at Naruto's desk. My adolescence buddy is in elegance 1A, he tells the boy. I am meeting him for lunch, want to join us? He wants Tamaki to fulfill Naruto and recognize that he is not an asshole like that they had imagined. Naruto sweeps everything on his desk into his bag like one would possibly sweep the rubbish off a counter and right into a trash bag, and Mirio remembers Naruto's obvious lack of hobby in the class fabric they'd covered on their first day thus far. He winces. Sure. Naruto jumps to his toes and flashes him an extensive grin. Lead the manner, Tebeo. The two of them make their way towards the canteen, or he leads the way to the canteen at the same time as Naruto follows, because the blonde had sounded almost proud when he'd admitted he had no clue in which, whatever changed into simply yet, Tamaki had stored them a seat, and the raven shyly waves at him, while their eyes meet. He sees his buddy falter a touch whilst Naruto confidently follows him to the table. Mirio, he says shyly, and skittishly glances up at Naruto. Hey. Mirio turns to Naruto to introduce him to his buddy whilst something inside the boy's expression makes him pause. For the first time that day, there may be something off about the blonde's smile, and he is staring at Tamaki like he had seen a ghost. Tamaki notices too, and he is quick to lower his gaze. Whatever it were, this is sufficient for Naruto to interrupt freed from it. Hi, I'm Bakugan Naruto, you need to be Amajiki Tamaki? Mirio's informed me about you, great to meet you Tebeo. Tamaki reels on the sudden barrage of phrases, but no longer in a bad manner, and Mirio relaxes as Naruto is short to coax his apprehensive, shy friend out of the shell he'd been seeking to disguise in the back of. So, my old school became a bento form of region. How's the canteen paintings? Do they have got ramen? UA is a day college, and Naruto catches the educate to move home after his ultimate magnificence. He wants to invite Mirio and Tamaki over. However, while he has in no way had to ask for permission before inviting over friends, he has a feeling his mother will not recognize a lack of warning, so he asks the two for his or her modern deal with and guarantees to have them over quickly before he splits approaches with them midway home. He wanders his way home, body greater than used to the route through now. That boy isn't the Uchiha, Kurama says, referring to his second of frozen surprise from lunchtime in advance. I recognize, they simply regarded a bit alike. So I used to be amazed for a 2D, did they simply? Naruto thinks returned to Tamaki, yeah, however he changed into so well-mannered and shy and in that feel, they cannot be any more aside. Motive most of the time he is a strolling trash bag labeled bastard you recognize. Kurama hums in settlement, and Naruto hammers this idea into his mind because it is not honest to anyone if he sees strains of Sasuke in Tamaki. It had just been a non-permanent thought, brought forth by means of nostalgia and missing his team. Luckily, the blonde and raven early life pals do no longer have a purple-haired pal. Quickly, he spots silhouettes out of doors his residence from streets away, and he recognizes Katsuki and Izuku long earlier than both boy notices him. Izuku is crouched on the ground, eyes huge and fascinated as he looks up at Katsuki, who has his arms spread and is excitedly chattering away. He is aware of what his brother needs and grins at how thoroughly lovable the boy is. Izuku is sticking with him too, and this is nearly as adorable. Katsuki. Izuku-kun. Both boys freeze earlier than Katsuki spins on his heel with a noisy aniki, whilst Izuku hastily scrambles to his feet. How turned into your first day of faculty? Izuku asks politely, nervously, and Naruto pats the boy on the head. Well, how became it? Katsuki needs. Naruto affectionately rolls his eyes. He grabs each boy's via the arm and frame glints straight into his living room. Kachan, I am domestic. Mitsuki turns round from where she have been sitting on the counter, bent over a mag, lengthy used to his random pops inside and outside of the house. Welcome domestic, she says. How was school? Naruto grins. Sorry, Kachan, he says, but I promised to inform Katsuki first. And Izuku, Katsuki says absent-mindedly, nearly automatically and subconsciously. And Naruto has a sudden thought that possibly he is used to doing so. He suppresses a frown, and Izuku-kun, stated boy flushes at his call. However, Mitsuki good-naturedly shrugs. Oh, I see. I bet I should anticipate my flip. Then, Katsuki struggles out of his grasp and darts up the stairs. Come on. Naruto frame glints up the stairs, once more Izuku with him, and calls over his shoulder at his brother whilst he lets out a legitimate of grievance. Yeah, come on Katsuki. The next day, Naruto arrives proper on time. He slips into his chair simply as Anagi makes him look via the door, and he has a horrific feeling that he goes to lag behind in his arrival each day. He wonders how lengthy it'll take for him to start pulling a Kakashi, or perhaps he may want to send a clone. He's assured that as long as it isn't any bodily education, his near can handle being him flawlessly excellent. Still, he has no idea what any of his classmates' quirks are. He had stuck glimpses for the duration of the quirk apprehension take a look at, but he is aware of not anything concrete, though distinctly not going. What if one in all of them had a quirk that could tell that his clone become not him? If located out, could he be expelled? Naruto in my view did not care too much about graduating from the hero college. A hero changed into no longer determined through grades and a license as some distance as he changed into worried. But Katsuki wanted to grow to be a hero. No, if he flunked out of UA, he becomes sure it'd have an effect on his brother in a few way. He changed into no longer clever enough to determine out how precisely. But he did no longer need to try this to the boy. Mirio seems to know that he surely does not like gaining knowledge of at a table. After their first length is completed, his pal leans lower back toward him. We have heroics later today, he tells him. All I understand is what I read from the syllabus. But we are out on the field in our hero clothes. That virtually excites him. And Naruto is able to live wide awake for the duration of arithmetic. The fourth length comes by way of, albeit not quickly enough, and Naruto over again follows Mirio to the changing rooms, where their clothes are apparently sitting and awaiting them. He'll examine the college layout one day. Mirio tells him approximately the film he and Tamaki are making plans to look at over the weekend and extends an invitation for him to sign up for them. Naruto wonders if he had made any plans, then accepts. The ratings had been quite proper, Mirio says. They input the converting rooms after their classmates and head over to their lockers. I noticed that online, Naruto replies. I've a gaming pal, he's a bastard anyhow, he has watched it, and he advised me it turned into very dull. So I have been wanting to check it out. He opens his locker, genuinely though. The whole lot. The bastard tells me Katsuki had informed him that a cloak might be rather impractical out on the field. But as long as it changed into Kurama Chakra fireproof, it'd be part of him, and thus could not prevent him in any respect. He had forgotten about this. Mirio glances over at his abrupt silence, but Naruto slightly notices that too. He pulls out the cloak and stares due to the fact it's far simply as he had imagined. He changes in relative silence. And Mirio seems to observe something is off due to the fact he maintains quiet while he does. His jacket is just as he recalls it, and he's inspired because he had given extra description of the fabric than its real call. Katsuki had helped him track down the color code of the orange he wanted on a computer, and the whole thing feels just proper. So maybe he had not managed to transport on, and maybe he's making the whole thing tougher for himself. Nonetheless, at this factor, he is too finished to care, and it makes him glad, so he's going to not permit all and sundry bitch. It does not remember plenty if he's being sincere, primarily because his hero outfit could be his Ninetales chakra mode. Still, as he throws on his jacket, this is his however is likewise not, and he feels abnormal in a very good manner while he sees his own reflection within the mirror. He ties his scarf into region, then throws the ultimate part of his outfit over his shoulders. He seems into the mirror once more, and Naruto of the Konohagakure stares returned at him, an uncharacteristically unhappy appearance in his eyes and the cloak of his desires flowing over his lower back. Fate would possibly have fucked him over, and the Identify Hokage won't maintain the burden or significance it did again in his international. However, he may want to nevertheless be one in spirit due to the fact that was what mattered. Kai sends her messages once in a while. Sakura is still now not positive what she thinks of smartphones. However, she likes that it has a digital camera which could at once take and ship photos. She does not understand who invented selfies. However, whoever did deserves a cookie. Her cell phone vibrates, and she or he glances down at the screen. Communicate of the devil. The boss sends ordinary updates to her. However, she typically receives signals from Kai first. Perhaps it's far due to the fact they may be the handiest kids in business enterprise, made up primarily of adults. But the boy seems to enjoy her presence, even though she will tell she annoys him. I heard you're in the region. Drop by. Sakura rolls her eyes on the tone of the textual content. More order than request, and shoots him a middle finger emoji in response earlier than sending a time and attaching the vicinity of her preferred family restaurant. Kai leaves her on examine, however Sakura tosses her telephone someplace else so she considers them even. She stretches, notes she has an hour before she has to depart, and turns again to her office work. She is lower back in Yokohama for paintings. After all, now not for a smash. And her unit is set to leave the prefecture in 2 days' time for a weaponry exhibition in Uda. She manages to wrap up early and checks her telephone one last time before she prepares to move out. Tenko is accompanying some of her men with region scouting for a coming deal, and will now not be again for some time. She walks to the cafe due to the fact it's far positioned and insignificant 5 minutes from the motel. She recognizes a few men to be of the Shai Hasaikai, even though she does know them personally, and sees that Kai is already there and waiting when she enters. Welcome. Desk for one? Sakura waves off the waitress with a polite smile. My pal's already right here. She plops herself down contrary Kai, who seems up whilst she sits. Sakura, he says curtly. Sakura inwardly rolls her eyes but indulges him. Kai, she says before she fails at her try and preserve a directly face and cracks a smile. How have things been? I do not understand why you insist on assembly outside. Kai huffs and gestures at the menu. Order. Sakura does not ought to look. She waves over a waiter. Miso ramen, please. Kai makes a face. Refill my cup. Thank you, Sakura adds, and shoots Kai a glare. The waiter takes his go away and Sakura turns again to Kai. So? How are matters? The boss might be recommending me as an executive throughout the following assembly, he says plainly. Will you be attending? Sakura, and her unit may be far away from HQ maximum of the time, but she knows she says has sway in the Shai Hasaikai. She racks her brain. The one 2 weeks from now? She winces. I'm in Okinawa, she says. There's an public sale I'm to attend. I'm able to try to. Kai shakes his head. It's okay, he says. Business is greater essential. Sakura smiles sympathetically. I'll watch the VOD. Kai huffs. How have matters been for you? Sakura shrugs. Suitable, she says. Not anything interesting. I ate Mexican food for dinner remaining night time. Kai rolls his eyes. He has the decency to attend until the waitress who had brought his cup leaves earlier than he thoroughly whips down the cope with. Sakura does not query it, lengthy used to it, and waits for him to take a sip. So, did you call me here because you overlooked me? Or because you've got something to mention? Boss has a granddaughter, did that? Sakura blinks. Oh no, I did not, although I guess it makes sense. I take into account he had children. What approximately this granddaughter? Kai shrugs. Apparently her quirk is much like mine. He is setting me in charge of her. Sakura chokes on her own breath. What? Kai chucks his hand sanitizer at her. Is it that unexpected? You hate youngsters, boss's orders, right? Sakura mentally needs the granddaughter's success dealing with the edgy boy in the front of her. Something else? More than one rats were sniffing around at your feet, Sakura hums. Whilst there are rats, there is typically an entire mischief in the back of them. My feet? Or that of Shai Hasaikai? Yours, and through default, ours. Sakura suppresses the urge to sigh, questioning where Kai had picked up this manner of speaking. Perhaps adults did it, or the supposedly cool characters in motion films. All in all, she needed he could simply get directly to the point. Still, she indulges him because he's an infant in person's global, and she or he isn't grown up in a child's body, and he or she is aware of higher than all and sundry that he had little to no preference getting up so far, in comparison to everything that they had performed up to date, the whole thing they would come to do within the destiny. This became as harmless as could be. They fall right into a natural silence while a waiter comes by means of once more. This time with Sakura's orders, she purposefully slurps the soup. Kai makes a face. A few guys underground seem like snooping round. Sakura hums. Whatever I can paintings with? Truly, I'm telling you due to the fact I heard about it in passing. Reason what sort of people aside from the ones lacking any experience of dignity might call themselves the League of Villains. It takes a while for Tenko to provide a call to what exactly he has gotten himself into. However, at that factor, he's now not surprised. Why do you do this in case you know it's unlawful? Tenko asks HM? A Yakuza. Sakura spins her phone in her hand. I ponder, she murmurs. The largest cause is that I wasn't given a whole lot preference. I was born into this global, and things have been decided for me earlier than I was vintage enough to decide on my own. She places her cell phone in her pocket, then climbs up onto the couch next to him. I don't know the time whilst the Yakuza ruled the underworld, she says. My dad and mom died some years in the past, and twist of fate, they said, but I doubt everyone believed that. I was taken in with the aid of the boss while I used to be 5 and given this process whilst I used to be 10. I have been at it ever on account that, Tenko's mind whirls. Yakuza. Sakura pats him on the lower back of his shoulder. Of root, you don't ought to be part of it, she says. It might be hard to be able to be completely become independent from it, but in case you desire it I can help you attend college and pass out while you're antique sufficient to do so. What do you do? Sakura smiles wryly. The Shai Hasaikai is probably a femmed institution, but we broadly speaking act as a separate unit, she says. I deal in general with weaponry. She glances at the clock hanging at the wall and links her palms in front of herself. There are plenty of Yakuza who aren't satisfied with how matters turned out. The call of Yakuza as soon as struck worry inside the hearts of folks who heard it. However, with the established order of heroes and villains, the Yakuza had been labeled because the latter without a whole lot truthful judgment, and have been unexpectedly at the mercy of the regulation and the justice the name hero brought. Now, only a few people are left and maximum are barely shells in their former selves. We survived because maximum of our earnings came from weapon dealing, and as long as we address the precise form of weaponry we are able to constantly have an area on this international. Sakura glances round then leans in. I individually do not thoughts, she says quietly. The Hasaikai is the most effective circle of relatives I recognize, and we just take place to belong inside the global of organized crime. I do what I do because humans rely on me, and regardless of the whole thing, our call is a form of safety one cannot discover somewhere else. I realize what I am doing and I'm as a substitute exact at it. There may be a knock, and a person called Jester drops off a few forms. Most of Sakura's partners went through aliases, typically the names and their quirks or something in addition associated, he notes. Sakura continually brought herself as Sakura, with none mention of a surname. Should I exchange my name? He asks offhandedly. That is what villains did in TV indicates, proper? It truly is completely up to you, Sakura replies, tone severe to a question he had meant as a comic story, however now not necessary. You do not must force yourself to give up what little of your own family you have got left. Tenko nods. I don't assume I want to neglect, he in the end says. Perhaps I should not, Sakura seems amazed for a second, however her expression soon blooms into a vibrant smile. That's the brave manner of going about this, she says quietly. If so, naming yourself after what changed you is a great reminder, I assume. I'll reflect on consideration on it. Take some time, Sakura says. There is a knock on the door and the pinkette slowly sits returned. Yes? The automobile could be right here quickly, princess. I will be there in a 2D. Sakura receives to her feet and smiles. Also, that is instead amusing. She sincerely looks as if she is having a laugh. Tenko smiles a little as he watches the woman flit around the room fixing her appearance. She grabs her coat and throws it over herself. I will be lower back later, she says, if matters pass nicely. Allows pass eat yakiniku. Caring for a child, Sakura comes to examine, isn't always easy. Tenko might be no longer the most demanding child she's been around. She recollects Naruto as a child and is aware of she herself changed into as a substitute cringe-worthy. In reality, he is probably one of the most quiet, sensible youngsters she has met in some time. Nevertheless, there's something approximately them that makes her warier than she possibly needs to be. The chance stage of a person is partly the abilities they own. However, by and large it depends on who makes use of it, and the way they make use of it. Tenko's quirk is probably terrifyingly strong, but she thinks he is a traumatized infant scared of his own potential. Sakura is probably a young girl with crimson hair and huge inexperienced eyes, but she turned into raised to be a killer. No matter how lengthy it took her to recognize the authentic weight of what that intended, and has fought in a struggle before, if it comes right down to it, she can kill the boy together with her bare hands. She will be able to no longer, of root, but the know-how that she will, the reality that she is probably leaps and limits beforehand of the majority who exist on this global, makes her slightly wary of herself. She has no purpose of interfering inside the runnings of this world. In the end, Tenko is a quiet toddler. She has no manner of really knowing what have been like before he had lost his family and joined a gang. However, she has a feeling he became alternatively quiet to begin with, if something. The signs of beatings littered round his frame permit her to take a position. She acknowledges signs of abuse the first time she gives his frame a right test over. Her purpose have been to look if his quirk had terrible consequences on his body, seeing as how destructive it turned into to the matters round him. And she or he frowns whilst she comes across a healed fracture. There are not any symptoms of scientific recuperation, even though luckily it seems to have mended properly, and she mentally notes it before transferring on. Handiest to catch symptoms of a bruising, instead recent, littering his top arm. The damage extends to the bone, which is likewise bruised, and she or he without difficulty recognizes the signs of a grown man's hand tightly gripping the arm of a young baby. She deduces that this is an old injury from before he had joined the group because she is certain Tenko would not have tolerated anybody hurting him if he had the means to prevent it. She is aware of the boy had lost his family and wonders if the manifestation of his quirk was in self-defense. Tenko seems content now not to speak of it, and Sakura does no longer ask. She is aware of enough without having to, and he appears to have recovered instead properly from the bodily beatings. She buys him a gaming console and 3 of the maximum popular video games of the time for his birthday. A salesman warns her clone, who is underneath a henge and pretending to be her parent, approximately letting children play capturing games, and the cynical side of Sakura wishes to inform the person that she and Tenko, and anyone else dwelling below the identical roof, have killed people and that taking pictures human beings on a display could be a miles higher opportunity. Tenko looks up at his call and notes that Sakura is wearing an informal shirt and shorts. Are you going out? I was questioning maybe a short ruin, Sakura tells him. She has been stuck interior for a while. He is aware of need to come. Tenko nods, not seeing something else for him to do. He has finished his contemporary run of this recreation, but he does not want to invite Sakura to buy him another recreation. She will be able to if he asks, he thinks. But that thought on my own is sufficient for him to feel uncomfortable asking. Regardless, he is ready to take a destroy and an outing sounds fine, splendid. Sakura jumps to her FT and grabs her telephone. I want the automobile to pick up me and Tenko from the front gates at 3. What? No, yeah, that sounds desirable, thanks. She cuts the decision and shoves it into her pocket. Pass get changed, she tells him. I will be here. Tenko hurries to his room to do simply that. He changes into an informal shirt and pants, then throws a hoodie over because the feeling of being enveloped in smooth material feels secure. Sakura is status precisely in which she were earlier then, and he or she holds out her hand as he tactics. He is taking it, and shall we her tug him in the direction of the door? There's a mall close to the station, she tells him. Need to visit it? Tenko nods. Are we able to arcade? Sakura huffs. Now not for too long. She is extremely excellent on the video games there. Possibly he can ask her to win him something. Okay, their journey to the mall starts off nicely. They go to the bookshop, where they factor out random places to each other and observe down the gangs and whatnots located there within the tour ebook segment. She notes Tenko's lingering gaze on the game shop and wins him an all-May figure, and a large bag of chips from a claw system which they sit and devour on the meal's courtroom. They may be at the escalators down, just about to depart. Whilst the floor begins to shake and the screaming begins, Tenko goes stiff beside her. What is that? Sakura didn't have a clue, however she can make a guess. Humans around her are screaming and running from the northern aspect of the mall. If she lines her ears, she will be able to hear the awesome sound of things being overwhelmed. It's a villain! A lady screams from nearby. It's a villain. Sakura is of the same opinion with a grimace. Come on, Tenko, we ought to get out of the manor. Tenko nods sharply. They're in an extraordinarily unoccupied location of the ground floor, and he or she starts maying the boy toward the closest exit. A 2D tremor shakes the ground. Sakura can't even finish the curse that is at the tip of her tongue while the ground gives manner. Tenko we could out a sharp cry of wonder, and Sakura tucks the boy into her arms as they fall aground. She lands smartly on her toes and freezes. A barrel of a gun stares proper back at her, and its proprietor blinks in surprise at what she can only assume is her look. Concept you were a hero or scholar or something whilst you landed for your feet. However, you're just a child. Tenko is shaking in her arms. She will be able to feel it, and he or she is positive that it is not absolutely out of fear. She subtly grasps his wrist to stop him from lashing out. Irrespective of every other guy snaps, they will work as hostages. It is handiest her and Tenko right here. As far as she can see, there had been 3 villains, guys and a female. From the manor the car park is destroyed and the sea of debris surrounds them. Cameras need to not be functioning. Tenko shall we out a snarl while the woman grabs him via the arm and tries to drag him far from her. Sakura sees him twist, prepared to tear off his glove, and lets out a pointy "Don't pay attention," the female says, incorrectly assuming Sakura had been speaking to her. And you may not get hurt, Tenko, Sakura calls softly. Preserve your head down for a second, K? Tenko eyes her before he nods. Brat. Sakura whirls round on her heel, grabbing the hand of the person who have been attaining for her. She crushes it in her grip, then pulls him harshly down towards herself whilst he instinctively tries to shy away with a scream of ache and slams him face first into the floor with a chakra-empowered hand. There are shouts of alarm from behind, and she flashes via hand symptoms for a substitution approach, which locations her proper behind the girl, preserving Tenko. She slices cleanly through her throat with a chakra scalpel, and he or she collapses without so much as a pant. Tenko begins raising his head, and Sakura vegetation a hand in his hair, retaining it down. A little more. The man standing across from them has a gun in his hand, and his other is lots bigger and muscled than she recollects. A quirk, perhaps. You brat. Sakura sees the twitch in his arm and throws herself over Tenko, pushing them both onto the ground. A bullet whizzes over their heads. Sakura grabs a piece of concrete and throws it at the man, who appears to instinctively swipe his mutated left hand at the projectile, knocking it aside. The cut-up second of recognition shift is all she wishes. Although, and she hurls herself at the man, she geese below his mutant arm as he moves to seize her and goes for a punch. It has been a while, for the reason that she had fought like this, and she or he overreaches. The person staggers via the shock that comes with her swung fist. But due to the fact that her blow did not land, he recovers even as she herself is thrown off stability. A mutant hand grabs her by the upper arm and yanks her upwards. A second hand, now also mutated, grabs her across the throat and squeezes. Sakura grits her teeth and grabs onto the limbs, attempting to suffocate her. However, earlier than she will yank them off of herself, the man we could go on his very own. A scream of sheer pain is torn from his throat, and Sakura lands on her feet. A recovery hand round her neck and eyes huge as the man collapses onto his knees. Tenko stands behind him, an unloved left hand raised and shoulders annoying. Sakura launches herself upwards along with her fingers, kicking the villain's head upwards and wrapping her legs round his neck. She swings her weight with all her may and slams him head first into the floor. There is a loud crack. He does now not get up, Sakura, Tenko says urgently. He hurries over to her aspect, then hovers there uncertainly, as although unsure of what to do, he had rushed in to help her. Her chest feels tight and he hurries over to his facet. Tenko, are you harmed? Tenko shakes his head as he blindly reaches out closer to her. Sakura lets in him to tilt her head up as he inspects her neck, while his left hand comes up, however. She lightly grasps his wrist to forestall him. My capabilities don't preserve my garments from decaying, she says lightly. Tenko tenses and yanks his hand out of her grasp. It's okay, she maintains good-naturedly. Thanks for helping me. The boy flushes and he appears down at his feet. He turned into choking you. He tilts his head to look past her, and at the limp frame of the villain. Is he dead? Sakura keeps a cautious eye on Tenko's face as she nods, seeking to gauge his response. We won't be stuck? She nods a second time, this time a bit extra cautiously. We must be fine, she says. Our quirks aren't registered, so it will likely be difficult to music us. And I doubt they may be searching out children our age straight off the bat. She appears around them, nicely for the primary time. Still, we should depart. Tenko hesitates. I will decay them, Sakura recollects Tenko telling her that have been his main job again whilst he have been part of his preceding gang. He's used to it, it seems. However, something in Sakura nonetheless feels a bit sick asking him to do it. She forces down the sensation and nods. Okay, she says, and the boy actions forward to do simply that. They find Tenko's left glove, which he had ripped off his hand in a panic while he rushed in to try to help her, and deem it reusable during their experience again home. Their surroundings are absolutely caved in on them, so Sakura hefts Tenko onto her returned and jumps lower back up onto the ground they were on earlier. Then they hurry via the mall till they discover a sea of clients still speeding to escape, and no one takes much observe of two youngsters as they melt into the group. Hours later, Sakura and Tenko discover themselves lower back of their shared hotel room. Sakura is high quality, they hadn't left any traceable tracks at the mall. However, she shoots Kai a message to permit him understand just in case, and he consents to have someone take a look at. I will stay, Tenko says, and Sakura seems up. Yeah? She says slowly, attempting no longer to hurry him. I want to live right here, are you certain? Tenko nods, and my call, I'll trade it. My quirk modified me. I'm not the boy I was before it manifested. He swallows thickly. I killed my family, he breathes. And I used to be picked up with the aid of that gang once I had nowhere to go. Sakura has finished a bit research and is aware of the surprising disintegration of a neighborhood located in Shiga Prefecture. She has suspected Tenko is the only who caused it, but she does not say anything. Shigaraki. For the location that was my domestic, he chokes, as although the words at the moment are stuck in his throat, but he manages to force them out. Tamura. For the morning of these that used to be my own family, for the person who was once me, you do not should pressure yourself to give up what little of your own family you have left. She had advised him a few days ago. Nevertheless, this is probably tons, an awful lot worse. The first issue Sakura thinks is don't do that to yourself due to the fact the boy is chaining himself down to his beyond and she or he is aware of how destructive that can be. The second is pain, because he is nonetheless simply a baby. And he is aware so properly how loss of life isn't always most effective bodily, and additionally anger because society had compelled this sort of young boy to simply accept his own death to be able to maintain on living. However, is it fair for her to keep in mind him a toddler nevertheless? Sakura reaches out and gently grasps his hand. He flinches, however relaxes a second later. Tenko, Tamura, grips her hand tightly. It's a terrific call, she says softly. Welcome to Shai Hasaikai. Shigaraki Tamura. It had been 10 years, greater or much less, seeing that Sasuke had first landed in this world. In his mind, his beyond existence became still his lifestyles, whilst this second run became the trade world. However, at this factor, he has a feeling that such differentiation turned into greater out of practicality rather than because he virtually feels so. Of path, his life as a shinobi could continually be the life of Uchiha Sasuke. However, eventually he would have lived right here longer than he had inside the global of shinobi. That concept makes his chest feel heavy. Nevertheless, there may be plenty to remind him of his past lifestyles, and he wonders if it will be simpler if he should just neglect all of it. Once, serious about one had suggested Sasuke call him sensei, sincerely. It were extra alongside the lines of you could name me sensei in case you want. in a tone that made Sasuke suspect that man had most honestly expected to be referred to as simply that thereafter. Sasuke had no longer known as him sensei, due to the fact he had in no way in his existence called all people sensei, and even as a brand new lifestyles would possibly warrant a new set of life policies, he is not about to start breaking way of life each time quickly involved in one never brings it up once more. And for that Sasuke is grateful, because a one-time reminder can be disregarded as something he had forgotten. However, if he's told 2 times or 3 times, there's no way concerned with one will be given that it had just slipped his thoughts. Sasuke is wise, after all, and he has, thus far, allowed all people understand it. Nevertheless, regardless of all for one prompting him to take initiative, come to his very own conclusions and make his personal selections regarding his present-day mission, Sasuke knows that the outcome isn't always vital at all. He knows because had he been within the man's position, he would have executed the identical, while-state dealings inside the beyond. Their contracts had in particular stemmed from a tentative alliance where Malum could act below the banner of excited by one's call and the safety that came within the underworld, whilst in return they might be part of fascinated about one's motive ought to the need rise up. It became a simple sort of deal that tied them to many one-of-a-kind organizations. In any case, serious about one is to the villains what All Might is to the heroes, and plenty of our extra then inclined to serve him. And Sasuke does no longer think there are any loyalty troubles because he cannot believe everybody stupid sufficient to idolize enthusiastic about one seeing any sort of gain with allying with Yakuza. The principal problem lies within the truth that Malum had, up to now, purchased guns from any other enterprise affiliated with them. It is able to be something as simple as Shaiha Saikai offered ammunition for a less expensive rate, which is something Sasuke can recognize from a realistic viewpoint. Trying to conceal the switch can be comprehensible too, with the right motives. This United States has a rather odd dating with Yakuza. Their code of honor lets in them to stay quasi-legal, seemingly, and that, in flip, keeps the police forces from coming after them, or something. Certainly, Sasuke does now not apprehend it thoroughly. Nonetheless, it makes experience from Malum to want to cover their interactions with a set that isn't necessarily in best friend, and he has a sense that as long as they continue to be loyal and come whilst known as interested in one does no longer care about the reality both manner, which might be the primary motive. Sasuke had been surpassed this undertaking in the first area. The clever Jounin part of his brain is familiar with that, because he cannot imagine handing a child, irrespective of how clever they regarded, a large challenge. The part of him that had run off with an evil snake man and had thought waltzing lower back to Konoha after the whole lot he had finished become a good concept, but turned into disillusion at the bias of it all. To be honest, he ought to argue that it have been an amazing idea because his team have been glad and he have been satisfied and no one had died, or no person who mattered had died. Nonetheless, what is the factor of this all? Is it a teaching approach? Sasuke isn't always too sure, because no matter his apparent brush aside for Kakashi lower back while he had been a genin, he is sure the man were a shit trainer. His next instructor figure, Orochimaru, turned into most likely worse. Long story short, he had nobody he may want to evaluate to. Sasuke sighs, he has a horrific feeling. Had he gotten too excited before he had even showed there would be a fight? The outcome he wishes for that he is sure lies somewhere among maybe feasible and sort of reasonable is one where the whole thing is in reality the Yakuza pulling the strings, and he's then sent in to annihilate them. The absolute best state of affairs is one wherein by hook or by crook All Might is the cause, and he's dispatched to combat him, either way, until anyone aside from Malum become established to be simply concerned. Sasuke and his investigation might specifically be based totally across the gang stationed in Aomori. Deep down, Sasuke knows that nor is likely, but a boy can dream. Actually, when is he going to be dispatched out onto the battlefield? At this point, he does no longer care who he fights. If his schooling partner for later that day leaves the room with greater accidents than normal, nicely, he would blame desirous about one. Sasuke may be a villain, but this is greater a circumstance than it is who he's, or, so he likes to assume. That is why, when he sees a younger boy being accosted near the gates of a deserted park, his first idea is to tell the offenders to scram. If he have been to be specific, the boy is a teen, however to him, who has lived 2 lives and has technically been in person because he had been 12 in his first life. Every person more youthful than his intellectual age is a baby. He's a little too far to listen what is being stated without the resource of chakra, and he has no concept what the topic may be to make three grown adults attempt to threaten a teenage boy. He's nevertheless questioning if he need to step in while the boy all of a sudden reaches out and grabs the person looming over him by the face, or he notion he had. However, in the next second the person we could out a scream that is all of a sudden reduced short as his face disintegrates. His body is quick to observe, and the boy claps his hands together as even though he had swept dust off a few surface. The appearance in his eyes is bored as though what he had executed is equal to just that. The dusted man's friend, who had vines developing out of his lower back, lets out a cry of worry and rage and shoots plant projectiles at him. However, Sasuke watches him leap beyond the thorns shot at him to nimbly near the space before grabbing him, too, by using the face. There may be a scream before any other body turns to dirt. Close variety fighters are at a downside until they can close distance among them, and a longer-ranged opponent. The boy, barely older than him, had moved almost like a shinobi in how positive and swiftly he had closed, and regardless of the barrage of lengthy ranged assaults, the 0-33 attacker makes a run for it. But all it takes is a casual slap at the lower back for him to burst into bits, garments and all. The boy glances round and Sasuke notes that it ought to be useful, not having to easy up the useless our bodies. There was literally nothing left to signify the three men had ever been right here. He pulls out a pair of gloves from his lower back pocket, and tugs them on in a manner that makes Sasuke pause. Sakura had worn her gloves like that, had she now not? She would possibly have done so earlier than blowing something up, even as the boy seems to be carrying them after the destroying as even though to suppress his powers. But the manner he tugged them on and the way he flexed his arms afterwards is so nostalgic that he feels himself taking a leap forward before he even notices he had done so. The boy spins on his heel, eyes wide. He smooths out his expression, however, as quickly as their eyes meet. Excellent evening, polite, so they are going to fake that the murder had no longer happened. Perhaps the boy did now not recognize he had visible. Then again, he's positive that a normal child his age could have screamed and run off. So he can apprehend the boy wondering, so he makes a decision to go along with it. Accurate evening, he replies. He glances pointedly across the abandoned park. First-class place for a stroll. The boy huffs in what he thinks is entertainment. There are not any people here. Of root it is a nice vicinity to be, due to the fact you killed them. The boy glances down at his cell phone and frowns. Sasuke sees a keychain striking from a strap. He notices because it is an individual from a sport he plays. Is not it a touch past due so as to be wandering around? The boy asks. It is. Sasuke glances at his very own telephone display. -7. Kids such as you ought to have a bedtime. The boy pointedly turns away. However, Sasuke has been out of entertainment for goodbye that he is willing to chew. Besides, that is Yokohama, and as far as he is aware of, there are a constrained quantity of places kids with risky quirks can be raised to kill in a society like Japan. Was this part of a Yakuza territorial battle? You barely look older than me, he says nonchalantly, and pointedly follows. The boy grits his tooth in what he's sure is annoyance. He is attempting to chase him off. Sasuke wonders what he had visible on his display screen. The air in the back of him shits, and Sasuke carefully continues his eyes beforehand of him. The boy in front of him suggests no signs of noticing something. Every now and then, Sasuke forgets that these humans do no longer have even the faintest capacity to hit upon chakra, and due to the fact he can sense chakra he does no longer have the faintest concept if humans here can come across presences and the likes. Fire rears to lifestyles in his chest, and he is prepared to greet the newcomer with a face full of flames whilst the boy whips out a gun from the front pocket of his hoodie and, shall we a bullet fly in one, clean, practice movement. Sasuke watches it shoot right past him, just barely no longer grazing his cheek, and hit the lady that had regarded at the back of him cleanly between the eyes. The sound is muted. A silencer geared up on the end of what he suspects is a Glock. Did youngsters run around armed with guns in recent times? Then, an extra appropriate notion enters his thoughts. Did the boy simply kill some random character? Then, to be sincere, his first concept have been to light them on fire too. It just happened that the boy had gotten to her first. The boy now has the gun fixed on him, and there is a glance of unease in his eyes, as even though the shooting had been only on intuition. Subsequently, Sasuke makes a decision on what to mention. Might want to dispose of the body before the blood seeps into the ground, he says lightly, except you made dirt liquid. The boy lowers his hand and does as he had advised. Sasuke watches the disintegration unfold from the factor of touch till there is not anything left, changed into that your quirk? The boy gets to his FT, eyes wary and shoulders stiff. Sure, he says. He hesitates, then asks, does not it scare you? Sasuke shrugs. If the boy is going for walks around with a gun in his pocket and committing murders without a blink of an eye, definitely he's stuck up in something darkish and evil. Perhaps he, too, is a member of a villain agency? Ooh, a fellow. Nonetheless, if he had been in his location, he would not have stated whatever in any respect approximately his powers, simply to be secure. In that experience, the boy is really still a toddler. It's going to take extra than that to kill me, he says. Actually, a truth more than sheer confidence. Should not we be getting out of here? The boy stares at him for a long second. Earlier than he seems to shake off something thought had clouded his mind. He looks round, eyes landing on a protection digicam position near a lamppost. Maybe you have to, he replies. He is used to killing. If his composure is something to move by, he is assured, in which he's and appears to recognize the vicinity well, too. Enough that Sasuke suspects that the kills from earlier have been planned. He thinks return to his preceding concept, Yakuza. If he efficiently recalled, this specific vicinity became owned by using Shihasaikai, the Yakuza he have been searching into. He had no longer anticipated one in all its members to seem proper in the front of him. He turned into a child, however. Could he have any applicable records? The boy raises his gun once more. However, there's a loss of intent in his eyes. Nonetheless, Sasuke turns his eyes pink as a warning, and the boy neatly freezes. He stays rooted to his spot, cautious of his eyes and of no longer understanding what the exchange in color signifies. No longer gonna shoot? He demanding situations. He knows he can dodge bullets along with his Sharingan. However, killing a toddler still leaves a terrible flavor in his mouth. Suffers of instances. He could understand all approximately that. He had spent way too much time with Naruto. The handiest other character who wasn't frightened of this quirk became out to be as a substitute nice individual. The boy says dismissively. He hesitates. And you are a youngster. It truly is likely the main purpose. He tries to do not forget if the adults the boy had murdered had any shape of trademark. Perhaps they have been of a rival gang. So are you, he retorts. The boy in front of him seems to now not have the wittiest thoughts because he bites his bottom lip in annoyance, and really glares. At least he does no longer resort to childish name-calling, although that might have something to do with the fact that they're in an alternatively odd state of affairs, being an assassin and a witness. The boy's telephone lets out a legitimate again, and he keeps an eye fixed on him, while he quickly glances over the screen. Sasuke needs it were a name in order that he should pay attention in, but he waits while he kinds out whatever it is by way of capturing a quick respond. That is Shihasaikai territory, the boy tells him. His voice lacks any form of delight or haughtiness that could suggest loyalty to the name, and Sasuke notes this down in his mind. This entire location is presently being monitored by using its members. I recommend you go away earlier than my experience arrives. Need to you sincerely be announcing that to the sector? Sasuke asks. Security cameras within the location are all beneath our control, and any additional information is being erased or adjusted as we speak. Sasuke notes that the kills had, in fact, been planned. The boy tucks his gun away back into his hoodie pocket. If everyone asks, I'm a bothered, edgy teenager pretending to be more than I am. Sasuke cannot help but chuckle. He holds up his own smartphone. Provide me your range, he says. The boy blinks. Before searching horrified, Sasuke snorts and pushes on. I'm a person you would need to your contact list, he guarantees. He'll now not monitor his own affiliations simply yet, however he will if it makes his existence greater exciting. He gestures to the keychain. Or, we can simply game. The boy glances down at the chibi parent accessory. We can recreation. He sooner or later is of the same opinion. But there is a smirk tugging at his lips. Sasuke rattles off his range, then tells him to feature him on a messaging app due to the fact he can be changing cell phone numbers regularly. The boy consents without problems enough. Probable due to the fact he is aware and is within the equal state of affairs. What call have to I place you underneath? The boy asks, and Sasuke recalls that they have now not yet told each different their own names. A funny thought enters his thoughts. When he can have enough money to, all in favor of one, make certain to for my part check in on Sasuke, even though it is quite glaringly no longer to make sure the boy is alive. Sasuke is hard to apprehend and Kurogiri is sure taken with. One wants to try to study him every so often, if he had been being sincere, regardless of the years they have got spent together. He trusts Sasuke as a lot as he would a random stranger on the street. He trusts in the boy's talents, and his manage over his quirk, which he still does not know for sure what precisely it is. But Sasuke as a person is the maximum unchildlike toddler he has ever met. On that precise day, Sasuke had wandered off earlier after promising to go back by using the evening. When serious about one had introduced he would come with the aid of. Sasuke is typically on time for everything, even though that appears to be extra out of a desire to keep away from troublesome situations greater than any form of ethical rule, and he had been advised of interested by one's arrival a week earlier. That's why Kurogiri feels a bit concerned while 6 arrives and Sasuke has now not returned. He said he could go back by using now. Kurogiri tells the person when he arrives to a Sasuke much less hideout. Shall I name him? He's told no longer to, and in order that they await him to go back as a substitute. An hour later Sasuke steps through the door like not anything is inaccurate. Take out placing from his arm and eyes on his smartphone. He appears to send a text before he slips his cell phone again into his pocket and dumps his dinner at the desk. HN, we had an assembly scheduled. Excited by one says patiently. Sasuke shrugs as he sits at the sofa and takes out the meals. For a person who claims to hate ramen, he positive did eat a whole lot of it. We're given sidetracked. He says unapologetically. Notice the kid kill a gaggle of fellows, focused on one hums. Oh. 3. Quirk kills, then a bullet among the eyes for another. Sasuke sounds almost disturbingly pleased for a boy of 14 who had reputedly witnessed a homicide. He loudly slurps his soup and Kurogiri wonders if he is even chewing well, seemingly. The quirk is called decay. Kurogiri sees eager about one freeze, seemed useful. You may easy up dead our bodies certainly properly decay? The man prompts, voice icily calm. Did you get to see what it did? Sasuke nodded and he looked up, eyes narrowed. From what I should see, something touched with 5 fingers became to dust. What is this boy's call? Interested by one demands, and the identical 2D. Kurogiri places it collectively as nicely, Shimura Nana's grandson. Decay would healthy the description of the aftermath of the lacking boy's home again in Shiga. He's certain a quirk that can flip matters to dirt at a hint is uncommon at fine. I in no way said it become a boy, Sasuke replies calmly. He makes a face as he finishes the final of his soup. Kurogiri has a sense excited by one is starting to get irritated and steps in. We may also realize this boy you met, he tells him. Sasuke sighs. I failed to get his name, he says after a while. He seems to recall something, for a second, earlier than he dismisses it. Why would I ask some random youngster his call? A reasonable query, but it seems that be aware of the Shimura boy on my own is sufficient to placate enthusiastic about one for now. Kurogiri, he says. Have Jiren contacted Kurogiri, already understanding what exactly for, dips his head. Understood. Sasuke glances between the two of them earlier than he shrugs to himself again, and turns to his second bowl of ramen. So possibly his new gaming accomplice is extra than he had initially notioned. Sasuke glances on the touch records of the boy, now dubbed Deathly Fingers. Before he tosses his phone onto his bed, he had checked the safety of cellular gadgets the instant he had heard what they have been for and what they did. And he made sure to buy his very own telephones to apply alongside the ones supplied to him via all in favor of one. He had accomplished his own research. But he is not yet assured in his capability to note if the devices given to him had been tampered with. If desirous about one is searching out Deathly Fingers, he supposes it were a good idea to notice him down on a private telephone. Did that mean concerned with one could launch an invasion in opposition to the Yakuza to get his hands at the boy? Sasuke recollects the talks of a lacking grandson he had heard more than one instances at some stage in his early days. From the way the talks died down as his personal education stepped forward, it seems as although the role he presently plays as thinking about one's successor had initially been Deathly Palms. No longer that the boy knew that. Sasuke may suppose he had stored the boy from a sad destiny. But thinking about the fact that he had been killing people in a deserted park and had ties to the Yakuza, perhaps he had ended up somewhere unhappy anyhow. He considers inviting the boy to a game night time with him and Ramen Lover 7, however, then makes a decision to hold off for the night. He should look into this as properly, and seeing that he had long lost interest within the Aomori gang case, this new state of affairs being a whole lot greater interesting in his opinion, he would have a lot of time on his palms.